Live from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada, Sam Mirejovsky here. The What's Right show is on. Friends, welcome to the party. That's right. Sam@whatsrightshow.com is my email. I check that periodically through the program, so reach out to me with thoughts, comments, concerns, and of course on X, formerly known as Twitter, @whatsrightsam. So I have this overwhelming thought that keeps coming back to me. Mentioned it about a week and a half ago, that living among us are some dangerous people. And they're dangerous because they have broken with reality. Now, I mean a certain type of Democrat. I'm not convinced that Adam Schiff, for example, belongs to this particular group of which I speak. When I see Adam Schiff doing interviews, and I played one of them yesterday, denying his complicity in mortgage fraud and, turning this all around as to be some giant witch hunt targeting Democrats, and that Trump is the first person in the history of the U.S. presidency to do something like this, i.e. target his political opponents, guffaw, 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 right? That type of thing. I'm convinced, right, that he doesn't actually believe this. He is a narcissist and a sociopath. He lies with the type of ease that, would make Johnny Cochran blush. But he doesn't. But I'm among us, right? Friends, neighbors, family members. Okay, there are people who absolutely have bought into every Democrat lie that's been told. I think back to stories from my childhood of my parents growing up in Eastern Europe in a communist country during the Stalin years. And, I was a kid listening to these stories and listening about the terrible things that happened to people, particularly brave people who would speak out against the regime. And I remember when I started getting of age intellectually, right? When I started, you start getting into your early teens, preteens, you start to ask more questions than you do as an 8-year-old. Anyway, so one of the questions I asked was, I just was curious at how this monstrous regime, this, Stalinist regime in my parents' native Czechoslovakia, how it could operate, how it had enough people that went along. Was everybody just afraid? Was everybody a true believer? Was everybody, I put this out there, and I time and again, and reinforced through my life experiences as I've grown up and visited the country and talked to people, is there's an inordinate amount of useful idiots who truly believed in the socialist utopia. They bought into the propaganda hook, line, and sinker. There's a certain type of person who believes what they're told. Now, these people are not necessarily inquiring, right? These are not critical thinkers. These are people who want to put everything nicely in a tight box. They're not bad people. They're weak. They're oftentimes not, that bright, although some of them highly intelligent, but they lack a certain curiosity and a certain skepticism that is necessary to constantly question lines that, that most of us with inquiring minds find to discover to be complete crap. You would think that, going back to the example of the socialist country, I'm going to tie this back to what's going on here now, today, in the United States of America. You would think that after, 20 years of 5-year plans, because that's what they did, the socialists, for a 5-year plan. We're gonna produce 300 tractors a year. We're gonna produce 1,000 of those. Okay, 5-year plan. You think after several 5-year plans failing and coming up short and just slow deterioration of the country, the people would wake up from this, but they didn't. This is the critical thing. They did not. And they were believers, and they turned in their friends and neighbors. Well, so-and-so over there, Mirejovsky, is a subversive. He's reactionary. He's a danger to the socialist dream. And now if you just replace all the communist buzzwords, socialism, right? Because it was always socialism. They didn't talk much about communism, but socialism. If you replace that with democracy, you start to listen to how the American left operates. And again, I don't mean Adam Schiff. I don't mean Nancy Pelosi. I don't mean Chuck Schumer. I just mean our friends and neighbors. Because they are in their minds convinced that you and I, by virtue of voting for Donald Trump and supporting Trump and being, MAGA, they think that we are basically subversive elements within the United States of America, and that we're an existential threat to their very existence. When the reality of it is completely the opposite. What we are doing right now, what we are experiencing, if people would just open their eyes, is a great American renewal. We are tossing, yes, years of complete nonsense and deterioration, quite frankly, that has seen our country devolve into some sort of, Euro-light, democratic socialist country, a la, Great Britain or Germany or Sweden. The very same people that influenced those countries, of course, were educated in great American universities where they were programmed to think much in the same way that someone like Angela Merkel was thinking and is thinking. We've made a U-turn on this. We are returning to the things that make America incredible. And I don't want to get into buzzwords, but we are an exceptional country. We are a country that has achieved more in the last 200 years than, honestly, Europe. If you look at it, Europe, the Western world, led by democratic socialists over the last, certainly in the post-war period, right? Led by democratic socialists and gradually slow-walked into decline. And then enter the globalist utopia of open borders. And my gosh, you blink every 10 seconds in Europe, some horrible story. The most recent of which, of course, was the American who stepped in to protect an assailant, a woman from an assailant, an immigrant assailant, an asylum seeker. He was stabbed in the face. It's a horrible story. Again and again and again, little girls getting violated and then arrested for fighting back. Parents arrested for questioning the regime, while the attackers, the rapists, the grooming gangs are left alone. That's what we've seen in Europe. And we were this close to it here, if not there already. And over the last 4 years in particular, although the decline began under Obama, and Obama, I believe, shepherded in by George W. Bush, in the last 4 years, what did we have? Door-to-door SWAT team arrests of Americans for protesting, for literally going to the Capitol. But it was to overthrowing the government, Sam. What was that? It was an insurrection. No, it wasn't. There's no such thing. If a Republican insurrection was afoot, there is no way that people aren't showing up with guns. These were people protesting against what they believed was a messed up election. So many people there that day were nonviolent, and they got treated no differently than the regime treated opponents under communism. The way my parents grew up in the 50s under Joe Stalin, very, very similar. But if you poll Democrats, if you talk to these Democrats today, if you talk to rank and file people, again, not Nancy Pelosi, but you talk to your neighbor, your uncle, your whoever, and you check at them, they think that they are the freedom fighters. They think that they are the resistance. And they view Trump as the statist. Now, I want to get into this a little bit today because, by the way, when you look at the insane Cope Fest that was going, Cope, C-O-P-E, all right, the Coping Festival that was the Democrat gathering yesterday in Minneapolis, you realize that these people are, in fact, getting programmed day in and day out. And the media is doing a tremendous service because these people are so angry. They don't understand, how is it possible that so many Americans voted to reinstate Orange Hitler? And the difference between America right now and Europe and other countries is that we have so much independent media here and a First Amendment protection of that media that opposing viewpoints can make it out. The regime narrative, in spite of his best efforts, in spite of the fact that Biden literally tried to install a woman to be the misinformation czar, George Orwell, come back to life. In spite of those efforts, we still were able to counter the narrative. We were able to fight back against the propaganda. And I don't know how many people can get deprogrammed. Some of these people will never get deprogrammed. And it's just an interesting point because there's a lot of stuff right there outlined and things that I've experienced that give me, a little bit of concern about some of you out there. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, The What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam and Ash 702-820-1234 because you deserve what's right.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Yes, I know. I'm going to get to this in just a moment. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Grateful to be here, folks. As always, behind the What's Right microphone, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. All right. Lisa Cook. I got to mention this really briefly. The embattled Federal Reserve Board of Governors down there in Georgia, in Atlanta. I got two problems. Trump fired her yesterday, late afternoon, sent out a letter, basically said, "You're done. We're terminating you for cause." This is related to her alleged mortgage fraud. Now, her answer back to Trump is not necessarily that surprising. She says, "I'm not going. I'm not doing it." Which, by the way, I'm laughing. This is sort of like the white-collar version of the video you see online of somebody getting pulled over by the police. And they say, "Ma'am, I need you to step out of the car." "I ain't going." I'm not moving. "Don't tell me I want your supervisor." Well, she can't tell Trump, "I want your supervisor." He's the president. But it's just functionally the same thing here. But I digress. Can I just put on my lawyer hat for a moment? I see two major problems for Ms. Cook here when it comes to her her quixotic fight to stave off her termination. Number one, to challenge a for-cause termination, meaning, what is that? It means that there is a reason for Trump to fire her other than just his displeasure with her work. There's something that she did, break a law, a matter of moral turpitude. They're laid out in the contracts, for cause. In order to challenge it, she has to go and fight the cause. And the stated cause here is that she fudged her mortgage applications, one or both of them. Remember, these are the two mortgages that she signed up for, 2 weeks apart, claiming both residences were her primary residence. Okay, so in order to challenge it, she would have to put on a case saying, "I did not do this." And all of that gets investigated. Because in order for her termination to be overturned, the court would have to find that she did not do what was alleged. The literal last thing that Lisa Cook wants is a whole lot of investigating into what she did. Going away quietly is her best chance at protecting herself. By fighting for her job, she may end up putting herself in jail. Now, the second thing, and here's the obstacle not just for her, but for Powell, Jerome Powell, and that's This is very, very specific. If she, let's say the judge now, they'll find a liberal judge somewhere, federal judge, to put a stay on this. If down the road that stay is overturned and she's ultimately terminated, if she continues to serve in her capacity at the Federal Reserve, if she continues to make decisions on the Fed, and then later, retroactively, she's deemed to be ineligible to make those decisions, it throws the entire Federal Reserve into a major state of flux. People could come later and say these decisions that were made while she was still voting on the board are no longer valid. You see? That's a problem. And it could end up becoming a fireable offense for Powell, for Jerome Powell, the chairman and also embattled person at the Federal Reserve under fire from Trump, could end up being the impetus for his ouster. So this is all kind of a big goulash of problems. So, and by the way, Trump's got the upper hand. All he just has to do is say, okay, all right, well, we'll see how this plays out. In the meantime, they end up cooking in their own juices. So that's my take on this. Now, I got to share this video with you about the various people across this country, ordinary people, probably good people, who are just bananas. They've Trump derangement syndrome has broken them. And there's this one guy who claims he's from Georgia, and I'm taking him at his word. He put this video online on his social media account, and the video basically talks about how in his neighborhood, that 60 people in his neighborhood, in a neighborhood about 1,500, so 1,500 people in his neighborhood. He says it's in North Georgia, it's a red state, a red town, and that 60 of his neighbors had a secret meeting. And he says it was secret. They wanted basically to get together and talk about the dictator Trump, all the corruption. And they met a half hour away from the neighborhood. This is what's so crazy. So they all got in their cars and separately, secretly drove to an undisclosed location, 30 minutes away to have a secret meeting. And he was at the meeting because he's known, I guess, to a group of people as being an anti-Trumper. And he raises his hand at this meeting and says, hey, guys, quick question. This was kind of a pain in the butt drive. We have a 40,000 square foot clubhouse in the neighborhood, lots of room. Why don't we meet there? And he says the people looked terrified of this. And this is his description of why.
And basically it was shot down, and most of them said, no, we can't meet at the clubhouse because our neighbors will find out, and if they find out we're against Trump, we'll be blackballed from every event, every pickleball and every tennis and every club in our neighborhood, which is a very active neighborhood, super active neighborhood, and we'll be ostracized. We have to meet secretly. And I've been thinking about it all night. Dreaming about this all night. People are terrified to talk to their neighbors. This is the United States of America. I don't know how old you are, but I promise you, I'm 60 years old. This is not the country I grew up in. This is not the country I grew up in. It's become a place of fear of our own neighbors. Scary times, sad times in America.
How is this Trump's fault? This is a genuine question. I mean, I see this as a cell phone. I see this man and all of his neighbors sitting around fearful that they're going to lose their pickleball privileges. Honestly, because they've been running around for the last 4 years like jerks, going, go to jail, to ordinary Americans, to grandmothers, grandfathers, to doctors, to truckers, calling us the enemy from within. And their coup didn't work. And now our president is back. And he's holding people accountable. He's not going after your little clubhouse in your little town. These These are like illusions of grandeur and self-importance and fears and projections. This is mental illness. The left is mentally ill. God, let's unpackage this when we come back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome back. There's a study that just came out that I think it's interesting. Well, it didn't just come out. Excuse me. It just got republished because it's been back in the limelight. This is a study back from 2016, as a matter of fact. CBS Philadelphia reported that there was the Public Religion Research Institute found that 24% of Democrats say they've blocked, unfriended, stopped following someone on social media after the election because of their political posts. Only 9% of Republicans and independents say the same, meaning that roughly 2.5 times the number of Democrats are likely to cut you off because you're MAGA and they disagree with you. This is a type of viewpoint intolerance, fragility of thought, lack of confidence in ideas, and overall emotional response. I always talk about this. The left doesn't think, it emotes. The left doesn't ponder questions, analyze things. They feel their feels. That's a dangerous problem. So I played that clip of the guy, in northern Georgia who lives in a nice community. They got a big clubhouse. Instead, the anti-Trumpers, about 60 of them out of a neighborhood of 1,500. So a small legion of kooky people drive 30 minutes away from their neighborhood to meet in secret so they don't get banned from the pickleball court. I mean, he said that. Those are his words, not mine. I'm just pointing this out. Now, these are people, of course, and I want to explain it to you, that at the very moment that they are blocking their own friends because of their viewpoints, they're also limiting their exposure to any type of news that challenges them. And I just listen, folks, you listen to this program. By virtue of listening to this program, you get a lot of opposing viewpoints. I spend most of my show, when we talk about the media and the clips that we play here, pointing out to what the left is saying. I'm constantly using their words. For example, why don't I do it now again? Jeff Tobin, who is, well, he got himself into a little trouble, didn't he, once, Robbie? Yes, he was on a Zoom call and was punching the clown, allegedly. Okay. Jeffrey Toobin, he's been rehabilitated now. It's all good. He didn't know that his camera was on. I don't know what it was all about. It was gross. But at any rate, he's a legal analyst over at CNN. He's on Anderson Cooper's show. And here's what he said. He literally, talking about these investigations going on into Bolton and others, calls these legal cases unprecedented. They're unprecedented. Where has he been for the last 4 years?
Well, this criminal crusade against political adversaries is completely unprecedented in all of American history. I think that's true. Now, when the Bolton matter, I think in fairness to the Justice Department, it needs to be pointed out that those search warrants were approved by an independent magistrate, both in New York and in Washington and Maryland. So there was at least some check observed. But when you look at the full range of criminal investigations, whether it's Senator Adam Schiff or New York Attorney General Tish James or Lisa Cook, the Fed governor who was the president attempted to fire today. Whether that's legal is a separate question. Miles Taylor, who's on tonight. All of these are political adversaries under criminal investigation. And I should add to that list Barack Obama, whom the president said committed treason and is now under investigation. This kind of crusade against enemies is absolutely unprecedented.
Are you kidding me? Or is this real? But again, think back to the folks that only listen to media and take in news sources that confirm their own personal political bias. Think about the people that are dependent on the media echo chamber. And honestly, by the way, I'll point this out too. You will hear things on this show that are more cutting edge than anything you will ever hear on Fox News. And I may have mentioned this to you before. I periodically do appearances every week. In fact, I'm going to be on later today with John Solomon, which I'm really looking forward to. John is a tremendous journalist. So I'm going to be on with him about 3:30 here after the show. And my point here is that I frequently, even on very conservative networks, I will get told, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that. These people have threatened us, and I know on my show, it's my show. I take responsibility for it, and I talk about stuff, and I do it, carefully. But I certainly bring up topics, so you'll hear things here well before you will hear them on Fox. And I think watching Fox by and large is pretty boring because it's just people that mostly agree with me. I like listening to CNN. I like listening. Like is a big word, but I like listening to MSNBC. It challenges me. But again, these are the very people that won't even talk to their friends or neighbors, that when they talk about politics, travel 30 minutes outside of their neighborhood because they're quote unquote afraid. When really what it is, and this is the important point, really what it is they would hate to be confronted by somebody who's going to spit some facts at them. They're hiding because their emotional take on things is not substantiated in logic or fact. That's the fundamental problem here with the left right now. And look, if you listen to it, this is unprecedented. And so you get these boomers who are watching CNN, all 12 of them, at any given moment. They get together, they say, I heard it was unprecedented. And it's like they've never been anywhere outside of their house for the last 4 years. Absolutely wild. Think about the conservatives that were targeted. I mean, just in the last 4 years I'm laughing about this. Well, we don't know by Bolton, and this was a legitimate case. It's not a legitimate case. What legitimate? Remember when Alvin Bragg took a misdemeanor business records charge and turned it into 34 felonies, bootstrapping it to an alleged violation of federal elections law that the Biden prosecutor in New York declined to file charges over? What about the Letitia James case where Mar-a-Lago was only worth whatever it was, $18 million, when a plot of land half the size next door recently was sold for about $500 million? Such a clown show. All of it. It was all fake. They went after Trump, and they're like, oh, boo-hoo, we're going to go after Obama. They're accusing him of treason. It was treason. Obama, together with his top lieutenants, concocted a scheme by which to overturn the election of 2016. Functionally overturn it by ousting Trump from office. And the only reason more people aren't up in arms about it is because people have been programmed steadily for the past 9 years to reflexively think of Trump as Hitler. You can do anything to stop Hitler. The ends justify the means to stop Hitler. You can break the law to prevent a second Hitler from now taking over the United States of America. Democracy is at stake. And hearing a opposing viewpoint, that is a very, very challenging thing to be confronted with your own lunacy. Because now you're breaking through this, this conviction that these people have, that I imagine this absolute false reality that they're in, it's got to be traumatizing to emerge out of it and suddenly, know that the last 9 years of your life was a complete lie. So many conservatives targeted, from Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, Rudy Giuliani, my friend John Eastman, Mark Meadows, Sidney Powell, even George Santos. Really, I mean, he's a crazy guy, but he got the book thrown at him as a Republican when many Democrats got away with far more over the years with just a slap on the hand. Any person that went against the deep state, Republican, Democrat, Independent, was targeted by the Biden administration. This guy is nuts. So but so many people out there feel the same way. All right, quick break, because there's more of this. By the way, I'm gonna get to this next. What do you think happens when you're applying for work and the company is owned by one of these people who are traveling 30 minutes to go meet with their neighbors to conspire against Trump in the safety of an undisclosed location? What happens when you apply to a job where the boss, the owner, or the hiring manager is a TDS afflicted person? It's a great question. I'll give you a little glimpse into that in a moment. Don't go anywhere. The What's Right show will continue after this. Well, I don't hire based on politics. I just don't do that. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, talking to Robbie here during the break. I don't. I hire for talent. I don't really care what your opinion is about things, as long as you can tolerate mine. You can imagine, with me running a business that serves the public, a law firm, my objective is to serve all Americans. And by the way, I'm very good at what I do, in part, I think, because I am conservative, because I'm tough. I'm not emotional. When I make arguments on your behalf, you may disagree with my politics, but when I make arguments on your behalf, they're based in fact. I don't deal in what I feel. And by the way, when you argue with facts, you get more money, which means you get more money. So it's good. Now, one thing I will say, and this is something I've confirmed over the last decade, certainly, is that generally speaking, my experience, those are the two caveats. So generally, okay, my experience, conservative employees are more likely to get the job done faster, quicker, better, with less crap. And it's sadly liberals that want to turn your workplace into a agitation zone and want to talk politics and want to get into and just overall need their mental health breaks and that kind of stuff. Just saying. Now, there are exceptions that apply, and I have some top people in my firm who voted for Kamala Harris, and they're great people, and they absolutely, I trust them with my case all day long, right? I mean, they're tremendous people. So exceptions apply. Now, there's this guy that's gone viral. He's in Texas. He's a business owner. It seems that this man is gay. It's not an aspersion. I'm just saying he says as much in the video. Now, it's a long video. Here's a particular part of it. And basically what he's saying here is that he is not hiring, as a matter of policy in his business, any Trump supporters. Not doing it. Have a listen.
I rejected a Trump supporter as a potential hire after reviewing their social media. And before anyone comes for me in Texas, political affiliation is not a protected class. I confirmed this with my legal counsel, and I'm well within my rights. This is really to serve as a PSA to other businesses. Um, Take a stand, do what you can. Refuse to hire them if it's legal where you are. Refuse them service if you can, and if you're able to. Whatever it takes to say that we're not supporting hate. We will not normalize oppression. They want to refuse to bake cakes for us. They don't want us in their houses of worship. We have to at some point say, this is our line. You've overstepped it, and now you're going to feel what we have to feel.
Okay. Sorry, are we talking about the Masterpiece Bake Shop case? Is that was that the case where a man who is Christian and doesn't believe men should marry men, women should marry women because it's against his personal religious beliefs, you don't have to agree with them or not, was being forced by the state of Colorado to bake a gay wedding cake? Is that who we're talking about? Because actually, the oppressor there was the state making the guy do something that he didn't want to do. See, this I have to first tackle the substance. I always get hung up on this because people are dumb. So that's first things first. Second thing is houses of worship. I mean, there's plenty of churches that are welcoming to gay people. A couple of our best friends are a married gay couple, two guys, really smart guys, and one goes to Catholic church, and the other one, I think, is a Presbyterian. It's kind of weird. They go to different churches. I think it's kind of an odd deal, but they've clearly found a place to worship, and nobody's chased them out. In fact, pretty sure one of the husbands, how do you say that? One of the husbands is on the board of his Presbyterian church. So, yeah, there's plenty of places where you can go when you're, I mean, what are you talking about? So really, it comes down to the fact that this guy is triggered by a Trump supporter, doesn't even want to be around this person, is self-segregating himself away from people that disagree with him, is self-segregating himself away from more than half of the population. In Texas, I would argue perhaps a bit more than just a half of Texas thinks the way she does, and not as much as his opinions are. So anyway, but that's, I look at this as a business owner and I go, oh my gosh, bro here, I don't know what kind of a business he has. I don't know if it's successful. I don't know if he's making any money. Maybe it's an NGO that just lives off the government, nipple. But look, I mean, he is limiting himself to what? Just a part of the applicant pool of prospective employees who have their septums pierced, who have blue hair, who need mental health timeouts, who go and talk to their therapists on a regular basis about setting up their boundaries. Do you know how many employees I've had over the last 5 years who have been absolutely destroyed professionally by the advice that they get in therapy? They destroyed, like their careers have ended and suffered ignominious destruction over advice that they get from their therapist. And the boundary thing is always, you establish your boundaries. Man, you're learning in this job. What boundaries? You leave at 5. That's your boundary. What do you mean? We're not asking you to go do anything insane. You're just here to do the work. Your boundary. It's weird stuff. So anyway, he's limiting himself to a pool of people that is generally, and from my experience, far more emotionally fragile than conservatives. Again, exceptions obviously apply. It's kind of nutty. Question for you. Do you think that this is truly unprecedented? My parents years ago, and they listen to this program, so they'll remember this maybe. I got as a gift a book, I think it was 100 years of the front page of the New York Times, something like that. It's a big kind of format, large format book. Do you know how often the word unprecedented was used over the years in headlines? That was my takeaway as a kid. I was in my teens when I got this book. So I'm flipping through it, reading these headlines. Fascinating stuff, right? Because it's contemporary takes in the moment reacting to news. And it was, of course, the New York Times, the paper of record, the gray lady herself. And you're going through it. And unprecedented, never before. I don't know. I think this company's been fractured. Remember that time when there was a nasty election? It was Eisenhower, I think. It was the 50s. And they came up with a little song that, if you hug my elephant, I'll kiss your ass, as a kumbaya for Republicans and Democrats to get together. Anyway, I'm just saying, maybe we should come back to that old ditty. All right. Sam Mirejovsky here, top of the hour. One more hour of the What's Right show up next. Making radio great again. Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right show. Yes. I have here this clip. I mean, I'm going to get to it in a moment, but Trump has been just on an absolute tear, and I can't wait to tell you all about it. Sam@whatsrightshow.com is my email. @whatsrightsam is my tag, my account handle. That's the word, handle, on X, formerly known as Twitter. So go on there, follow me. You will not be disappointed. I don't post a whole lot, but, sometimes I get in a mood and there are things happening, for example, on the weekend, and the show isn't on and I don't have an outlet. Well, good news. Here's Twitter, and I get on there and I give you my thoughts. And of course, some of you do interact with me there and comment on my stuff, and I respond. So, great place to get to know me. Okay. I got to tell you, Trump is right about the 80-20 issues. And I don't care what you call it, 80-20, 70-30. Folks, you can have a electoral blowout in this country with, 53% of the popular vote. So whether it's 60-40, whether it's 30-70, 95-5, it doesn't matter. What we're talking about are issues that broadly find consensus on our side, okay? Trump is, if I can mention this to our friends on the left who are convinced in their secret meetings that they're holding outside of their associations across America, secret handshake, hushed tones, worried about the coming military dictatorship under Donald Trump. If I could just say something to you, why is it that Trump in the last 6 months has been very deliberate in doing things that are, in fact, broadly popular? He's focusing on issues that are winning people over. It's perplexing. Very undictator-like, if you ask me. Now, one of the issues, of course, is the trans issue. Okay, the trans issue. Here's the basic scoop. A majority of Americans believe that men should not compete against women in sport. A majority of Americans have not bought into the propaganda that gender is this mutable characteristic that can just be turned on and off by virtue of some chemicals and or surgical intervention. Well, the other part of this is, of course, that there is a deep sense of fairness that dictates that it is not okay for men to compete against girls, for boys to compete against girls, right? To take and victories away from women, and that this is somehow just common sense, right? That is an issue that a majority of people agree on. Now, the Democrats, for some unexplained reason, are all in on this issue. I was watching, and I didn't get to all of it because I had the show, of course, but the Minneapolis gathering of the DNC, and this is the people are getting up there, these speakers, and they are doubling down on this. They're doubling down on crime. Here's another one, crime. Look at how popular Trump's, foray into the cleanup of Washington, D.C. has been. Trump's intervention in our nation's capital is being warmly received. It just is. The data is there. And you'll see articles surveys done where they're misleading. They ask misleading questions. And there's one Democratic strategist that we'll get to in a moment that drives at this. And she is, I think, but basically, I mean, this is inside baseball, but political baseball. But she says the question out loud, and the Democrats are all applauding. But she's demonstrating how misleading the question was in the first place. Broad support for less crime. Turns out, shocker, shocker, that people don't like murder. Okay, people don't like being raped. People don't like having their cars broken into. These are not equal crimes, but they're all crimes. They're all things that dramatically deteriorate one's standard of living. I played a clip. Was it yesterday, Robbie? We played a clip of a couple in Chicago. Maybe we didn't play it. No, we did. The couple in Chicago who said, "Hey, we get into the car and we Uber to where we're going on the weekend. We don't even walk." And I was reminded of this in San Francisco, a city I've mentioned this many times, a city that I almost, with my young family back in 2011 or so, almost moved to. I almost went to law school in San Francisco, and we almost moved to the city. And back then, San Francisco was, albeit a big city and had some danger to it, you could walk. I mean, I would walk from what is the Russian Hill area there, which is over on the other side, past Chinatown, okay, from Union Square, let's say, from the financial district. And I would walk all the way back to Fidei. I'd walk all the way back to Market Street. At night, after dinner, I'm a walker. I like to walk, and particularly after dinner, I've eaten a meal and I want to, I want to stretch my legs. I wouldn't dream of doing that today. No chance. So I sympathize with. I've heard from people in San Francisco who do the exact same thing. They just get an Uber, they taxi, they are forced to drive because the crime is so bad. There is nothing that is a good selling proposition for Democrats on this issue when you're talking about broad public support. It just doesn't exist. Immigration is another thing. The Democrats opened the U.S. Treasury and funded the largest human trafficking operation of the modern era. That's what this was. And the misery that it brought to, well, not just our communities, not just to Americans, but to the trafficked aliens themselves is horrendous. And at every point in time, we were told, well, the statistics don't show it. Well, crime is going down. Well, we don't have in Aurora, Colorado, apartment buildings that are being taken over by illegal immigrants. That's not happening with criminal alien gangs, Trenderegua. Not happening. We don't have lost children. This is nonsense. We're lied to. The same way that Jeffrey Tobin gets on CNN and says, this lawfare Trump is launching, I guess against Bolton and others, unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this. These people just lie. And they did lie, and they gaslit us for 4 years. Now, some people bought into it. Some people bought into it. A lot of people bought into it. We've talked about those people earlier today in the program. But a majority of the country gets it. They fundamentally understand. In fact, I think when historians go back and look at 2024, the election of 2024, I think it was a referendum on reality. I think that people were told there is no inflation. Oh, there's just de minimis inflation. Oh, this is temporary, right? It's just temporary inflation. It's going to pass. It's no big deal. It's actually gotten a lot better. Meanwhile, people are going to the store. They can't afford groceries. They're being told by their overlords, you're fine. There is no problem with illegal immigration. Yeah, there's no problem. Yet communities across America, maybe not in rich people, gated communities, but in ordinary communities, working class neighborhoods, the problem was spiraling out of control. Well, it's just one or two boys competing in women's sports, but that means there's just one or two girls who didn't end up getting a gold medal, didn't end up getting first place that they deserved because they were bested by someone who physically was far better than them. By the way, somebody physically who could not compete and achieve a podium finish, were they, as a man, competing against other males. This is what we talk about with the 80-20 rule. And Trump has come out and called it the Trump trap. Meaning, the Democrats, so afflicted by TDS, have decided to reflexively oppose anything that Trump says and does. And this, by the way, is why the Democrats are cooked. All right? This is the greatest problem that they have. And this is why Governor Gavin Newsom's efforts to moderate have already run aground, and he is now pivoting far left. And by the way, lying through his teeth as he seeks to woo the broader American public. It is not going to work. The Democrats are divorced from reality, and reality wins. It certainly won in 2024, and Trump is demonstrating, by the way, that the victory was righteous. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, back in a moment.
The Salmon Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. By the way, Trump today held his seventh cabinet meeting. Televised, answered questions. By the way, according to a former CBS News White House reporter, Mark Knoller, President Biden personally presided over only 9 full cabinet meetings in his entire term. There was 3 in 2021, 2 in 2022, 3 in 2023, and 1 in 2024. None were televised, and they were generally quite short, about 5 minutes each, and included very, very limited press interaction. All right? That's where they were giving the reporters advanced questions, right? Well, and they only let them ask, I think, was it 5 questions? It's crazy. So anyway, Trump is holding another meeting and, of course, answering questions from the media. And he's asked at one point, hey, Mr. President, explain this to me. You really should try to get some of this stuff done working together with Congress, right? You can't just be a dictator, right? That's kind of the narrative. And Trump here answers this absolutely correctly, saying Congress isn't getting anything done. They're just reflexively, because of the Democrats, voting against everything and anything that I do, even when it's good. And again, think here in terms of the 70, 30, 80, 20, 90, 10, whatever you want to call it, issues, where there's an overwhelming support for the stuff that Trump is pushing.
Here's the problem in Congress. You have Democrats that will never vote for anything. I could say that we're going to lower your taxes by 50%. We're going to guarantee you free cities, safe cities. Nobody will ever get touched, molested, beat up, shot in the head. We're going to give you the greatest country ever. We need your vote. And they won't vote. And they do it in unison. The only thing they do good is cheat on elections and unite. You know why they unite? Not because they're good or they're loyal people. They unite because they're afraid. They're afraid of the radical left.
And by the way, the radical left was on full display at the Democratic National Committee meeting, summer meeting yesterday in Minneapolis. It was just crazy. It was all wackadoodle people. Now, Trump calls this, and I mentioned this just before the break, the Trump trap. We've mentioned this here. I've talked about this numerous times, that there is this reflexive desire the Democrats have to simply reject anything because Trump is for it. And so Trump did this in the cabinet meeting. He calls it the Trump trap and talks about the 80-20 issues. And you know, look, for example, the trans sport issue. Boys competing against girls, men competing against women. And this is what he said. It was funny, of course, but also spot on.
There was a consultant on one of the shows this morning I was watching. I thought he was very good. He's a Democrat consultant. And he was screaming, no, no, don't let him do this to you. It's another trap. It's another trap. What he's talking about, like men playing in women's sports. They said that's an 80-20. No, it's a 97-3. It's 97-3, like transgender for everybody. They fought for it. They're still fighting for it. I saw a guy today, a politician that you all know very well, fighting like hell for men playing in women's sports. You don't understand. They're human beings also. Well, I agree they're human beings. But you can't have a 7-foot guy playing basketball with the women. You know, it's just one of those little problems in life.
Yeah, this is exactly right. By the way, so yesterday at the DNC, there was another Democrat strategist. Remember here, Trump is mentioning, and I don't know who he's referring to, but he's mentioning that he was listening to somebody, I guess, talking, a Democratic strategist, saying, don't do this, you're falling for the Trump trap. Well, here's Insha Rahman, vice president of the left-wing think tank Vera Institute, says, listen, migrant crime, according to this woman, migrant crime and carjackings really don't matter as much as you think to ordinary Americans.
Where does Trump go? Migrant crime, carjackings, the really lurid, awful stuff that is a crazy, crazy visual. Don't take the bait, because most Americans are more worried about how are we going to address mental health issues, the visible homelessness that we see on streets, and how do we deal with mental health and other issues that drive the sort of random incidents that scare all of us. That's what you should be talking about. That's where you should be focused. Don't take the bait in talking about migrant crime or carjackings or the things that actually don't matter to that many Americans.
Imagine being this detached. I don't care if you live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Las Vegas, Nevada. If you live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, Dallas, Texas, small town, big town, red state, blue state, doesn't matter. You care about carjackings. You do not want to get carjacked. I just feel like I'm having to think like a crazy person to even get this point out, but it's nuts. And from this website of this woman's think tank, here's what they're about. Quote, Vera is committed to dismantling the current culture of policing and working towards solutions that defund police and shift power to communities. This is bananas stuff. It's absolute insanity. And it was followed up with today a whack exchange on MSNBC Morning Joe with Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. Morning Joe, who is not a conservative guy, asks Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago, one of the crime capitals of the world right now, about if he could use 5,000 more cops. He asks this question 3 times, and look at how this went.
Would you also like to get federal funding to help put 5,000 more cops on the street in Chicago? Would that help drive down crime?
Well, look, policing by itself is not the full strategy.
Do you believe that the streets of Chicago would be safer if there were more uniformed police officers on the streets of Chicago?
I believe the city of Chicago and cities across America would be safer if we actually had, affordable housing.
Do you believe the streets of Chicago would be safer if you got all of those other extraordinary programs put back into place, if that's complemented by having 5,000 more cops on the streets of Chicago?
I don't believe that we should narrow it down to just police officers, Joe, is what I'm saying.
Would an additional 5,000 cops on the streets in Chicago help complement those programs to make Chicago safer?
Look, we are working hard to make sure that our police department is fully supported.
Okay. He can't answer the question because the Democratic Party has gone all in for the 10%, the 20%, the 30% of America that I guess is so divorced from reality that they think that truly more police does not equal greater safety. But it's a minority. And we are back to talking about the 60 homeowners in the association in North Georgia who have separated themselves from a community of 1,500 or 1,400 to meet off-site and to complain about Trump. The Democratic Party has gone full fringe. And they enjoy some majority support in blue areas and cities and artsy-fartsy areas. I get that. But increasingly at a national level, this stuff is just too kooky for the average American. And that's the state of it. Will it win an election nationally? Hell no. Sam Mirejovsky, back in a moment. Greetings, friends, and welcome back. The What's Right Show is your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. here on the What's Right Media Network. So let me tell you, we have the Democrats. I just played a bunch of their insanity dancing around, not even dancing around, basically coming out and saying we don't need more cops. We don't need more punishment. We don't need more jail time. We just need vibes. That's how we're going to get there. We just need vibes. Really what the Democrats want, of course, is they want more crime. They want cities to come apart. They want businesses to go out of business. They want to be able to then go into the husks of these great American cities and do what Mr. Mamdani in New York is promising to do, is set up government-run grocery stores. For example, government-run programs, government welfare, making everybody dependent as much as possible on the government, ensuring for the Democratic Party political sustenance. So that's just what this is all about. That's the plan. Now, that's why crime matters. It's not just my family, your family, our friends, our neighbors that are getting affected by crime. Some in a devastating way, right? Imagine losing someone to a stray bullet because gang members feel that they can just shoot at each other in broad daylight, right? That's not okay. That is a cost that is deeply personal, but the societal cost exists as well. And Republicans have a starkly different vision for it. Yesterday in the press conference in the Oval Office, questions back and forth, and of course our vice president, J.D. Vance, chimed in with this little gem. All right, I'm going to play this. Remember, he's there standing with Trump. He's got Hegseth there, and he's asking a really important question.
Why are Democrat governors angrier about federal law enforcement helping clean up their streets than they are about the fact that those streets need to be cleaned up to begin with? It shows a real sickness in the head. And I agree with the President of the United States. I think most Democrats, rank and file, nobody likes crime. Republicans don't like crime. Democrats don't like crime. Independents don't like crime. Why are Democratic governors doing everything in their power to make crime easier to do in their cities? It doesn't make an ounce of sense to me. But, Mr. President, I appreciate you being willing to help, and I hope these governors take you up on the offer because we should clean up all of America's streets. It's the right of every American to live in safety and comfort in their community.
Now, once you understand that it is a Democratic political strategy to bring blight into urban areas, to drive up crime in order to make businesses flee or shut down, to drive people to dependence on the government. Once you get that, then you start understanding why this is all happening. But one of the things that is just making me crack up is all of these Governor Newsom tweets about states like, well, Arkansas, other red states, Tennessee. talking about how high their crime is. Because Newsom's been putting, I got one of these tweets. Hold on. Let me pull this up here from my stack of stuff. There's a Newsom tweet that came out. Let's see. This was today, 11:55 in the morning. There's a picture of a rather sullen-looking Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is the governor of the state of Arkansas. By the way, using an old picture where Huckabee Sanders is a little bit larger. She's lost a lot of weight since then. I just want to point that out. Anyway, it says Arkansas murder rate is 2.6 times higher than San Francisco's. Why won't Fox report that? Ha, 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 gotcha. Well, wait, not so fast. There is a list that came out here just recently, U.S. News and World Report, most dangerous places in the U.S., 2025 to 2026. This list isn't political. It was created with the express purpose to help people know where it is safe to move in the coming year. And high to low, it's based on each city's murder and property crime rate per 100,000 people. And it's determined by the FBI crime reports. Now, this list of, let's see here, 25 top cities. 25 top cities, like most criminal cities in America, the most dangerous cities in America. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, only 5 have Republican mayors, and one of which, Alexandria, had a Democrat governor, John Bel Edward, until January 2024. I'm talking about Louisiana. Now let's get back to this silly tweet, okay, by Gavin Newsom. Whoa, Arkansas murder rate 2% larger, higher than San Francisco's. Who is the mayor of Little Rock, the most populous city in Arkansas? Well, if you go to the Arkansas Democrats website, you'll find a little article about, literally, this is the title of the piece, Little Rock's groundbreaking new mayor, Frank Scott Jr. They got a new mayor, and he is, well, let's just say, very progressive. The Democrats are excited. It's a new day. Now the city is spiraling into a crime wave. Why? Because the same nonsense espoused by Democrats in other blue cities has now come to Little Rock. And none of this is being pointed out, of course, by Gavin Newsom, who's like, oh, California's fine. You keep saying it. The same way that Democrats kept saying that there was no inflation in 21, 22, 23, and into 24. No inflation, Sam. Nothing to see here. Okay, if you say so. But right now, as I speak here on this program, 2:41 in the afternoon, Pacific Standard Time, I'm looking outside my window and the sun is up. I suppose Jeffrey Toobin, in between shellacking his dong on a Zoom call, could try to claim that it's nighttime. Robbie, you're laughing. Did I get you with that one? Excellent. By the way, folks, just a little here. I see Robbie here in the studio, and I can't hear him unless he presses the mic. And if I can get him to double over in laughter, that's how I know that I've scored. Anyway, so there it is. I mean, look, you can sit there and claim that it's nighttime outside. It's daylight. It's daylight. There's no crime. People don't care about crime. There's no crime. There's no Trenderegua taking over apartment buildings or a car. Oh, wait, a little bit. Martha Raddatz coming in and denying it. There's no credible reports. Remember, this is like when Trump did the debates. Every time Trump did a debate. This was 2020, 2024, 2016. It would be 3-on-1. It'd be Hillary, okay? Or it'd be Biden, or it was Kamala. And it would be then whoever the moderators were most of the time, libs, and they would all gang up. Well, our independent fact checkers say that's not true. What the heck? They just lied. And Trump would sit there debating not just his opponent, but also the propagandists who lead the media. Again, 80-20 issues. Again, very straightforward. Again, everybody understands that it is no accident that 20 out of the 25 top most crime-ridden cities are run by Democrats. We know this. And the Democrats, for their part, aren't even hiding the fact that they're anti-police. And there's this little saying, the proof is in the pudding. Have you heard this? The proof is in the pudding. Well, the pudding is crime, disease, homeless, drug-infested cities that could be cleaned up with a little bit of political will within a few months. The Supreme Court has given cities the authority to clear homeless encampments. There's nothing to hide behind anymore. All it takes is a little bit of political will. Remember yesterday played the clips over 20-some years of Gavin Newsom saying, we're going to fix homelessness this year, a 10-year plan. And like 12 years ago. 10-year plan, 12 years ago. Should have already been done for 12 years. But every time he spoke, he asked for money, talked about money. Money, money, money. We need money. We need funding. We need this. Brandon Johnson, mayor of Chicago, crime land, talking about how we need money for social services. We need affordable housing. If we wouldn't have crime if people just had a little money. Periods of history where people were very poor, but social cohesion was high. Crime was punished, oftentimes brutally. The disincentive was great. People had a need, more need than they do now, but they didn't steal. These are facts, right? Just a little dusting off of the history books will confirm this. But you've got Brandon Johnson out there saying, "Oh, we don't need any police." They're not hiding it. We don't need any cops. We don't 5,000 cops. Doesn't even want to address it on a friendly news program on MSNBC. And it's funny because Morning Joe was literally lobbing him these softballs. Well, okay, but you get all of the stuff you're asking. You get all the social brand. Okay, you get all that. But what if just federal government comes in and buys you in your budget 5,000 more cops? Well, I can't do that. The objective of the Democratic Party is clear. They want America to burn. If you doubt what I say, let's go back to the summer of George and reflect. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Yeah, producer Robbie and I here talking during the break. This is a misnomer, common misnomer, and used frequently as a device by liberals to explain how it is that poverty equals crime or leads to crime as a causation driver of criminal activity. But what it ignores is some of the very same policies that cause poverty, i.e. liberalism, also is a driver of increased crime. So oftentimes the cause of crime, the cause of poverty is the same thing. Socialist ideas put into practice. I'm looking at you, New York City. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings and welcome back. So, what has all of this unfettered leftism done for the state of the Democratic Party? Well, it's not good. Yesterday, Harry Enton on CNN said that Republicans are in their best position since at least 2005. Listen to this.
Look, the Republican Party is in their best position at this point in the cycle since at least 2005. In all four of these key battleground states, we go out to the Southwest, Arizona. How about Nevada? Republicans haven't done this well since 2005. Oh, my goodness gracious, at this point in the cycle. North Carolina, I couldn't find a point at which Republicans were doing better at this point in the cycle. It's at least this century. It probably goes way back in the last century. And Pennsylvania, very similar. Republicans doing better at this point than at any point this century, at least as far as I could find. Now, what types of gains are we talking about here for the Republican Party? Well, let's compare it to this point during the first Trump administration all the way back in 2017. Look at this. The Republican Party gains in party registration compared to this point back in 2017 during the Trump first administration. In Arizona, you got a Republican gain of 3 points. Okay, how about Nevada? Up the hill we go, even though we're sticking in the Southwest, a gain of 6 points. How about, again, we come to the East Coast, North Carolina, a gain of 8 points for the Republicans. And in the Keystone State, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, again, we're talking about a gain of 8 points. My goodness gracious, for Republicans, they are converting old former Democrats to their side of the ledger, as well as picking up new voters, registering new voters, and it absolutely paid off for them back in the 2024 election.
Yep. And why? Because the Democrats have become socialists. Democrats have become crazy people with emotional problems. The Democrats are out there busy fighting for trans people instead of for working class Americans. They've lost their ever-loving minds. Okay. So, but Sam, I can hear it now. I'm reading the emails already. By the way, Sam at what'srightshow.com. But Sam, what about the redistricting? Gavin Newsom's going to negate whatever happened in Texas, and Republicans aren't going to get anything else done. So it's really just still a fight to the death here in the midterms that the Republicans are likely to lose. Not so fast. ABC News, not necessarily a fan, ABC News that is, of the president. Rick Klein and Jonathan Karl talking yesterday about the forecasts, about the seats with all these various redistricting plans afoot, not just Texas and California, but other states as well. Listen to this exchange.
And in this nationwide war over redistricting, we've seen the two biggest states go first. The biggest red state, Texas. You mentioned those 5 additional seats.
Look at all that red.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of blue. They're squeezing that big time. Now, what we're seeing the opposite in California, where the Democrats under Gavin Newsom are putting a map on the ballot for voters this fall that could get them those 5 seats back. So that would make those 2 states.
Only 4 Republican seats, 48 for the Democrats if they pull it off.
If they are able to pull it off with the voters next year. And then, John, if you look at the other states that might still do redistricting this year, bottom line, it is advantage GOP. There are just more opportunities in places like Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, and Florida than there are in some of the big blue states like Illinois and Maryland. So at the end of this, it looks like Republicans are going to be able to squeeze just a little bit more juice out of these redistricting fights.
So again, the advantage here is for Republicans. And the Democrats have somehow gotten all behind Gavin Newsom succeeding with this redistricting efforts to begin with. Now, I understand that the polling right now indicates that it's likely to pass. By the way, the redistricting in California is not done. There's going to be a special election. The voters have to approve this maneuver by the legislature to take away from an independent council the right to redistrict the state, the responsibility of redistricting, and give it to the legislature, to this new map. So this has to get, it's a constitutional amendment, it has to be approved by voters. But I understand Gavin Newsom's been elected a few times, all right? But this is also a guy who built a train to nowhere for how many billions of dollars and is on year 15 of his 10-year get rid of homelessness plan. Gavin Newsom is not one of those people that get stuff done. You know, like if DeSantis says, I'm going to get it done, and at the same time Newsom is saying the same thing, you know, my money's going to be on DeSantis. Less flabbing of the jowls, so to speak. Less talk, more doing, more accomplishing, rubber meet the road kind of thing with DeSantis and, frankly, other Republicans. Now, GOP is going to come out ahead. That's what they're concluding here. Newsom is a play to make noise and get attention as somebody who took the fight to the Republicans. But this is for Newsom to get a headline. And again, Newsom is going to take the win of the battle if he does prevail in the special election, but ultimately it's going to cost the Democrats the entire war. Because it comes down to the basics. It's crime, it's immigration, it's the economy. Those issues are going to drive voters to the polls in the midterm, in the general election. And Republicans, until Democrats have a major awakening, until they, lose this ridiculous leftward plunge that they have taken, the Democrats are going to continue to become and continue to devolve into a fringe party. I think, I have this little theory here, that the Mamdani election, which will, I presume, is Mamdani's going to win as mayor of New York. He's going to be a high-profile mayor. My prediction is we're going to have a full year before the midterm of Mamdani doing really stupid, terrible stuff in New York. Almost like a perfect foil to Trump and, common sense America first policies. And when it comes to the midterms, all the Republicans are going to have to do you want Mamdani or do you want what we've got? Which one do you want? Voters, you can choose. But if you vote for Democrats, you'll get more of this Mamdani stuff. All right. I'll be on in 30 minutes on Real America's Voice with John Solomon. Don't miss that. Tune in. Real America's Voice at, 3:25 or so. And I'll see you here tomorrow, folks. Sam Mirejovsky, over and out.